Shortly after midnight, January 10, 1987, a Los Angeles Police Department dispatcher received a call from a man who said he was phoning from a pay booth. The mystery caller told the female operator that he wanted to report a murder. He claimed to have seen a man dump a woman's body out of a blue and white van, covering the body with a discarded gas tank in an alleyway near 1346 East 56th Street. He even gave the license plate number 1PZP 746. "Is that T like Tom?" asked the dispatcher. "No, P like in puppy," said the deep-voiced man, somewhat casually. When the dispatcher asked him for the killer's description, the man, after offering all these details, responded, "I didn't see him." The dispatcher asked the caller for his name. He laughed nervously before responding, "I know too many people." "Okay then. Bye-bye." 2 years ago, people are gathered outside the LAPD headquarters. They are protesting against the inaction of the department. At least 13 women have been found dead in the city over the last couple of months. People are angry as the LA Police Department doesn't seem to care about the victims. All victims were young sex workers, and the police didn't alert anyone about so many killings. The residents of South Central LA are infuriated. What nobody realizes is that the killer will not be found for decades. For more than 2 decades, this killer moved through Los Angeles without a name, without a face, and without consequence. Bodies were being found in alleys, dumpsters, and vacant lots. Each death was treated as isolated, unrelated, forgotten. But behind the noise of a city overwhelmed by violence, one man was quietly returning again and again, leaving the same signature, using the same weapon, targeting the same vulnerable lives, and then vanishing for years at a time. This is the story of Lonnie David Franklin Jr., the man known as the Grim Sleeper. Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was born on August 30, 1952, and grew up in South Central Los Angeles. He married and had 2 children. In July 1975, he was given a dishonorable discharge from the United States Army. The reason for his dishonorable discharge is very disturbing. After being released from prison for his conviction in the kidnapping and gang rape of a 17-year-old girl in Stuttgart, West Germany, in April 1974, Franklin was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in prison by a West German court, along with 2 other servicemen who had tried to kidnap a woman. They were stationed in Stuttgart and stopped to ask directions from the team, offering her a ride home. When she accepted, they put a knife to her throat, drove to a field, and repeatedly said her. She was able to feign interest in Franklin and asked for his phone number, by which police identified him. During the gang assault, photographs were taken by the rapists, as Franklin would also later do with the women he assaulted and murdered. In 1989, Franklin was convicted of 2 charges of theft, 1 charge of misdemeanor assault, and 1 charge of battery. He only served time for 1 of the theft charges. These charges don't reflect the true horror of this guy. When the authorities caught him for theft, they had no idea that he was responsible for the numerous bodies they kept finding in South Central LA. Grim Sleeper's reign of terror began in the 80s. At the time, most of the deaths were treated as isolated acts of urban violence. Only years later did investigators recognize that many of these victims were connected by a single offender. The earliest case associated with Franklin is Sharon Alicia Dismuke, age 21. She was found dead in South Park, Los Angeles, on January 15, 1984. Her murder was not initially considered part of a serial pattern. It was only after Franklin's arrest that evidence was presented at sentencing suggesting similarities between her death and his later crimes. On August 10, 1985, Deborah Ronette Jackson, 29, was found shot 3 times in the chest in an alley near West Gage Avenue in the Vermont Slauson neighborhood. Her murder later became one of the earliest confirmed killings linked to Franklin. 2 days later, on August 12, 1986, Henrietta Wright, 35, was discovered dead from multiple gunshot wounds in an alley near West Vernon Avenue in Hyde Park. Her body was found beneath a discarded mattress, and investigators believed she may have been killed elsewhere and then dumped. On August 14, 1986, Thomas Sylvester Steele, 36, was found dead at the intersection of 71st Street and Halldale Avenue in Harvard Park. Although police believed Franklin may have been responsible, he was never charged due to a lack of evidence. Investigators theorized Steele may have been targeted because of his association with another victim or possible knowledge of the crimes. The killings continued into 1987. On January 10th, Barbara Bethune-Ware, 23, was found dead in the central Alameda area of Los Angeles. On April 15th, Bernita Rochelle Sparks, 26, was found shot and left in a trash bin along Southwestern Avenue in Gramercy Park. Later that year, on October 31st, Mary Catherine Lowe, 26, was found dead in an alley on Western Avenue, her body shot and covered. In 1988, the pattern persisted. Lacrica Denise Jefferson, 22, was found dead on January 30th in Westmont. On August 15th, Inez Elizabeth Warren, 28, was found unconscious after being shot in an alley in Gramercy Park. She later died at a hospital. Her case was not linked to Franklin until after his arrest. Another one of his victims was found within a month. On September 11th, Alicia Monique Alexander, just 18 years old, was found dead in an alley near 43rd Place and Western Avenue in Vermont Square. Even by this time, LA authorities had no clue that these killings were done by one man. However, one victim survived. On November 20th, 1988, Initra Margette Washington, 30, accepted a ride from Franklin. He later drove her into an alley, shot her, and left her for dead. She survived the attack and would later become the only confirmed survivor tied to the case. After this period, the killings appeared to stop. People thought the dreaded killer had finally retired. The large number of bodies being recovered had already put a strain on the investigators. However, they had no idea that the grim sleeper would come back. They hoped he was gone for good, but they were wrong. More than a decade later, on December 28, 2000, Georgia May Thomas, 43, was shot and killed in South Park. Her murder was later linked to Franklin through evidence presented at sentencing. On March 19, 2002, Princess Cheyenne Bertholomeo, 15, was found beaten and strangled in an alley in Inglewood, California. She had last been seen by her family in December of the previous year. More victims were being found. On July 11, 2003, Valerie Louise M.C. Corvée, 35, was found dead on Denker Avenue in Westmont, Los Angeles County. Two women disappeared in 2005. Ayala Jibo Zada Marshall, 18, was last seen on February 1st in Hawthorne, California. Her body was never recovered, but her school identification card was later found in Franklin's garage. Rolinia Adele Morris, 31, was last seen on September 10th along Southwestern Avenue. Her driver's license and photographs were also recovered from Franklin's residence. In both cases, prosecutors cited this evidence at sentencing, though it was not sufficient for murder charges. The final confirmed victim was Janisha Livette Peters, 25. She was found dead on January 1, 2007, in Gramercy Park, shot and covered with a garbage bag. With so many victims, you might think, how did he escape the authorities for so long? The answer is actually quite simple. In the mid-1980s, the Los Angeles Police Department began to recognize a troubling pattern emerging in south-central Los Angeles. A series of murders appeared to be targeting black women who were chronic drug users and street-based sex workers. Investigators believed the crimes were connected, and the unknown offender became known as the Southside Slayer. Between 1983 and late 1985, at least 13 women were believed to have been stabbed or strangled. On the streets, the killings were sometimes referred to as the Strawberry Murders, a grim reference to slang used for women who exchanged sex for drugs. In September 1985, The LAPD publicly acknowledged the case during a press conference and appealed for information. The announcement, however, triggered immediate backlash. Community leaders and activists questioned why residents of South Central Los Angeles had not been warned sooner that a serial killer might be operating in their neighborhoods. One of the most vocal critics was activist Margaret Prescott, who, along with other organizers, began holding weekly protests outside LAPD headquarters. They demanded a dedicated task force and accused the department of neglect. Prescott publicly contrasted the limited attention given to the South Central murders with the intensive resources devoted to capturing Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, whose victims were largely in more affluent areas of Los Angeles and San Francisco. Prescott and her supporters argued that the victims' identities as poor, black women, many struggling with addiction, contributed to the lack of urgency. The LAPD denied these claims, but public pressure continued to mount. By January 1986, authorities had linked 15 murders to the investigation. Additional detectives were assigned, and a joint LAPD Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department team was formed, officially named the Southside Slayer Task Force. That March, Prescott formalized her efforts into the Black Coalition fighting back serial murders, successfully pressuring the Los Angeles City Council to increase the reward for information from $10,000 to $25,000. Despite these efforts, progress stalled. By late 1986, investigators began to question whether a single killer was responsible. Conflicting methods and suspect descriptions suggested that multiple offenders, possibly 4 or more, were active in South Los Angeles at the same time. With few leads and mounting costs, the task force was gradually scaled back. By December 1987, Task Force Commander Lieutenant John Zorn acknowledged the reality of the situation, stating that the flow of clues is almost non-existent at this point. The case remained unresolved, leaving behind unanswered questions, community distrust, and a lasting debate over whose lives were protected and whose were overlooked. In the years that followed, investigators began to unravel what the Southside Slayer investigation had struggled to define from the beginning. It became clear that not all of the murders attributed to a single offender were connected. Subsequent reviews determined that Louis Crane was responsible for at least 2 of the killings originally grouped under the Southside Slayer label. Other serial offenders operating in South Los Angeles at the time, including Michael Hughes, Daniel Lee Siebert, Chester Turner, and Ivan Hill, were each linked to at least one murder from the same period. Authorities also acknowledged that some deaths may not have involved serial killers at all, but instead resulted from isolated acts committed by pimps, clients, or acquaintances of the victims. As investigators worked to separate these overlapping crimes, additional cases complicated the picture. The murders of Judith Simpson, Cynthia Walker, and LaTanya Johnson, all committed with a 9mm handgun in late 1988, were investigated by the Southside Slayer Task Force. During the inquiry, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Detective Ricky Ross was arrested after police found him in possession of drugs and in the company of a sex worker. A rusted 9mm Beretta pistol was discovered in the trunk of his vehicle. Ross was charged after LAPD forensic analysts initially linked his firearm to the bullets recovered from the crime scenes. However, an independent forensic review later determined it was unlikely that his weapon was used in the murders. The charges were dropped, and all 3 cases remain unsolved. Amid this growing complexity, investigators identified a separate cluster of killings that did not match any known offender. These murders shared a consistent pattern. Each victim was shot in the chest at close range with a .25 caliber firearm. The earliest known case in this series was the August 1985 murder of Deborah Jackson, which forensic firearm analysis later linked to the August 1986 killing of Henrietta Wright. By 1987, 7 victims had been connected to the same weapon, yet no suspect was identified. For decades, the perpetrator of these murders remained unknown. Because of the long gap between the initial killings and later related murders, investigators eventually gave this unidentified offender a name: the Grim Sleeper. In May 2007, a major breakthrough occurred. The murder of Janisha Peters, age 25, was linked through DNA analysis to at least 11 unsolved homicides across Los Angeles, the earliest dating back to 1985. For the first time, investigators confirmed that a single offender was responsible for a series of killings spanning more than 2 decades. That same year, the Los Angeles Police Department quietly formed a specialized investigative unit known internally as the 800 Task Force. The team consisted of 6 detectives operating under the supervision of the Robbery Homicide Division. The investigation was conducted in secrecy, without public announcements or community warnings. After 4 months, the existence of the task force and the connection between Peters' murder and the earlier cases became public through reporting by LA Weekly investigative journalist Christine Pellicet. Her report revealed that neither Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa nor Police Chief William J. Bratton had issued press statements acknowledging the serial killer's existence. In some instances, families learned for the first time through media reports that their daughters' deaths had long been linked to a serial offender. In early September 2008, city officials announced a $500,000 reward for information leading to the killer's arrest. Public awareness increased further on November 1st, when the case was featured on America's Most Wanted. On February 25, 2009, Chief Bratton addressed the press for the first time regarding the investigation. During the briefing, police formally adopted the nickname, the Grim Sleeper, a term originally coined by LA Weekly to describe the long gap between the killer's known murders. Bratton also released a previously undisclosed 911 call from the 1980s. In the recording, a caller reported witnessing a body being dumped and provided a detailed description, along with a license plate number, of a van later connected to Lonnie David Franklin Jr. In March 2009, Pellicet conducted an extensive interview with Anitra Washington, the only confirmed survivor of the attacks. Washington described her attacker as a black man in his early 30s, neat, tidy, kind of geeky, wearing a black polo shirt tucked into khaki trousers. She also provided detailed descriptions of both the interior and exterior of his vehicle, details that would later prove critical. By 2009, the Grim Sleeper was no longer a rumor or a theory. He was a confirmed serial killer, active, unidentified, and hidden in plain sight for decades. Law enforcement later acknowledged that an opportunity to identify Lonnie David Franklin Jr. earlier had been missed. In 2003, Franklin was convicted of a felony and placed on 3 years of supervised probation. Under normal circumstances, his DNA should have been collected and entered into California's criminal database. In 2004, voters approved Proposition 69, which expanded DNA collection requirements to include all convicted felons and individuals arrested for certain offenses. The law also mandated the expansion of the state DNA database. Authorities began processing tens of thousands of samples. However, Franklin's DNA was never entered. Between November 2004 and August 2005, probation officers did not collect DNA from individuals on unsupervised probation, citing a lack of staffing and resources. By the time the department corrected the issue in August 2005, Franklin's opportunity to be flagged had passed. With no direct DNA match in the database, investigators turned to a newer method, familial DNA analysis. Instead of searching for an exact match, police looked for partial matches that could indicate a biological relative. That search led them to Christopher Franklin, Lonnie Franklin's son, whose DNA was in the system following a 2008 felony weapons conviction. Christopher was too young to be the perpetrator, but the partial match pointed investigators toward his father. Police then placed Lonnie Franklin under surveillance. An undercover officer posed as a restaurant waiter, discreetly collecting Franklin's discarded plates, utensils, glasses, and pizza crusts. DNA recovered from a piece of discarded pizza was compared to biological evidence from the crime scenes. The match was confirmed. On July 7, 2010, Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was arrested. Prosecutors charged him with 10 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and a special circumstance allegation of multiple murders. In December 2010, investigators released 180 photographs found inside Franklin's home after repeated attempts to identify the women depicted were unsuccessful. Police Chief Charlie Beck stated that the images suggested Franklin's criminal activity may have extended beyond the known victims and warranted further investigation. In total, authorities recovered more than 1,000 photographs and several hundred hours of video. The images depicted predominantly black women, ranging from teenagers to elderly adults, often nude. Many appeared unconscious. Investigators believed Franklin had taken many of the photographs over a period spanning 3 decades. The photographs were released publicly in an effort to identify the women and determine whether additional crimes had occurred. In November 2011, police confirmed that Franklin was being investigated as a suspect in 6 additional homicides. 2 of those deaths were believed to have occurred during the 14-year gap between his known killing periods. 2 others involved bodies discovered in the 1980s, while the remaining 2 were missing persons cases from 2005, with no remains recovered. Detectives stated that these additional investigations were the result of renewed case reviews and public assistance prompted by the release of the photographs. By the time Franklin was arrested, he had remained undetected for more than 25 years, his crimes hidden by systemic failures, delayed forensic advances, and missed opportunities that allowed him to operate in plain sight. Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was charged with 10 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, and was held without bail. He was never charged in the death of a suspected 11th victim, a black man, due to the absence of DNA evidence linking Franklin to that crime. Following a lengthy pretrial process marked by extensive discovery and multiple delays, Franklin's trial formally began on February 16, 2016. Over the course of nearly 3 months, jurors heard testimony detailing decades of forensic evidence, survivor accounts, and investigative failures that had allowed the killings to go undetected for years. Closing arguments began on May 2, 2016, and the jury started deliberations 2 days later. On May 5, 2016, after approximately a day and a half of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts. Franklin's sentencing hearing began on May 12, 2016. During the proceedings, prosecutors introduced evidence related to 4 additional victims they believed had been killed by Franklin. These cases were not part of the original charges and had not been established through DNA or ballistic evidence prior to his arrest. 3 of the victims, Sharon Alicia Dismuke, Inez Warren, and Georgia May Thompson, were identified by task force investigators reviewing decades-old missing persons and homicide reports dating back to 1976. A 4th woman, Rolenia Morris, was linked to Franklin through personal items discovered in his garage following his arrest. Her body was never recovered. Prosecutors elected not to formally charge Franklin with these additional murders, citing concerns that doing so would further delay an already lengthy trial. On June 6, 2016, a Los Angeles County jury sentenced Lonnie David Franklin Jr. to death. On August 10th, the Superior Court formally imposed sentence on each count, identifying the individual victims by name. Franklin remained on death row until March 28, 2020, when he was found dead in his cell. Authorities reported no signs of trauma. The official cause of death and autopsy results have not been publicly released. With Franklin's death, one of Los Angeles' longest and most complex serial murder cases came to an end, though for many families, questions remain unanswered and justice remains incomplete. Although Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was convicted of multiple murders in Los Angeles, questions have persisted about whether his crimes extended beyond the United States. One theory that has been raised, though never formally proven, concerns a possible connection between Franklin and the unsolved Belize Ripper murders, which occurred between 1998 and 2000. Interest in this possibility emerged after investigators and journalists noted that Franklin had personal ties to Belize through his former wife, Sylvia Castillo, who was Belizean. Observers also pointed out that a significant gap in Franklin's known killings in Los Angeles overlapped with the period during which the Belize Ripper murders occurred. During this same time frame, Franklin was largely inactive according to confirmed forensic evidence in California. Additional circumstantial factors have been cited over the years. One relative of a Belize victim reportedly claimed to have seen Franklin in Belize City around the time of the murders. It has also been reported that a van similar to one Franklin used in Los Angeles was later found in Belize. However, no physical evidence, such as DNA, fingerprints, or verified travel records, has ever been produced to conclusively link Franklin to the Belize killings. Belizean authorities never formally named Franklin as a suspect, and he was never questioned or charged in connection with the Belize Ripper case. As such, any proposed link remains speculative and unproven. Beyond Belize, investigators in California have acknowledged that Franklin may have had additional victims beyond those included in his conviction. Evidence presented during sentencing suggested his involvement in several other killings and disappearances dating back decades. Thousands of photographs and hours of video recovered from his home raised further concerns that his criminal activity may have been broader than what could be proven in court. Despite extensive reviews of cold cases, some potential victims remain unidentified, and others may never be conclusively linked due to missing evidence or the passage of time. With Franklin's death in 2020, the possibility of definitive answers has diminished. What remains is a case defined not only by the murders that were proven, but by lingering questions about how far his crimes reached, how many victims may never be named, and whether some answers lie beyond the borders of Los Angeles, or even beyond the United States. Even after Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was identified, convicted, and sentenced, many questions surrounding the grim sleeper remain unresolved. Over the years, investigators, journalists, and criminologists have proposed several theories to explain how he operated for so long and whether his crimes extended further than what could be proven in court. One long-standing theory concerns the true number of victims. Prosecutors secured convictions for 10 murders, but investigators have repeatedly stated that Franklin may have been responsible for many more. Evidence presented at sentencing, along with thousands of photographs and hours of video recovered from his home, suggested a wider pattern of predatory behavior that could not be fully traced to confirmed homicides. Some detectives have estimated that the true number of victims could be significantly higher, though this remains unproven. Another theory focuses on Franklin's 14-year apparent hiatus between known killing periods. Some experts believe this gap may not represent inactivity, but rather a lack of discovered or connected victims. Others have suggested he may have altered his methods, relocated temporarily, or committed crimes outside jurisdictions where evidence could be linked back to him. This has led to speculation about possible crimes outside Los Angeles, including unproven theories linking Franklin to unsolved cases elsewhere. The most discussed of these is the Belize Ripper case, though no direct evidence has ever connected Franklin to those murders. Authorities have consistently emphasized that this theory remains speculative. There is also debate over how Franklin avoided detection for so long. Some analysts argue systemic failures played a role, limited resources, delayed DNA collection, and the marginalization of victims who are often poor, black, or involved in street economies. Others believe Franklin deliberately exploited these blind spots, targeting victims he believed would not generate sustained investigative pressure. Beyond criminal investigation, the grim sleeper has entered popular culture and fiction. His crimes inspired elements of television series such as The Closer, Cold Case, and Law and Order, where fictional serial killers mirrored the long gaps, overlooked victims, and eventual forensic breakthroughs associated with his case. Documentaries, books, and investigative podcasts have also examined his crimes, often using fictionalized composites to explore themes of institutional neglect and delayed justice. While these adaptations dramatize aspects of the story, they also reflect a broader truth. The Grim Sleeper case is remembered not only for the man who committed the crimes, but for the systems that allowed him to remain invisible for decades. In the end, The theories surrounding Lonnie Franklin persist because definitive answers are no longer possible. What remains is an incomplete picture, one shaped by evidence, speculation, and the enduring impact of crimes that may never be fully understood. That brings us to the end of this video. Don't forget to like and share this video. Your support matters a lot to us. Subscribe to our channel to get our future crime videos and documentaries. Thanks for watching. Until next time.